Right, hello everybody. It's Rachel here from Lion Learners North Lincolnshire, and I'm showing you our giant African land snails this afternoon. We love mini beasts at Lion Learners North Lincolnshire, and we've got some really amazing snails here that always wow people when they get to go on their visits out. So these are a kind of giant African land snail. They are a different species to the ones that most people keep as a pet. So they do get a bit bigger than the ones that people are used to keeping. If you're into that kind of thing, not everybody wants a pet snail, I understand that. These kind of snails are known as Archachatina Marginata ovum, and they are one of the largest living land snails. So they do get really quite enormous. This is Thor, we can see here. We've got Thor and his two friends, who are actually nameless at the moment, sadly. We haven't given them names yet. If you've any ideas for names for Thor's friends, please put them in the comments, and we'll try and get them a name before the end of the day. I feel a bit guilty that they don't have names yet. They've just come to live with us fairly recently from the Lion Learners head office at South Angle Farm Park, and we're hoping that Thor and his new friends will lay some eggs and have some babies for us. If you have kept giant African land snails before, you might know that they can breed very, very easily. They lay lots and lots of eggs, but this species don't breed as easily as those ones, so we are hoping for some babies because these snails really are magnificently huge. Let's have a look and see. Got a tape measure here so we can see how big Thor actually is. It's difficult to tell on a video. You can see he's eating a bit of banana there, so he's got a fairly ordinary sized banana if you can compare him to that, and his shell is 19 centimetres. So he's pretty huge, but in many ways, of course, similar to any other kind of snail. You can see his huge tentacles. So he's got two pairs of tentacles. This top pair are his eyes, and underneath, feeling at that banana, they're his feelers. He feels and smells with those tentacles, so they do help him to find food and other snails as well. Snails release hormones, so he would know if there was another snail around because he'd be able to sense it. Now these snails are also known as banana snails because in West Africa, where they are native, they do tend to go onto the banana plantations and steal the bananas, so they're known as banana snails. But they will eat all sorts of plant matter, so lots of nice green leaves. We can feed them lots of salad, and they're also good at eating harder material. They like carrots, and we've got some butternut squash here for them. So they don't have teeth as such, not like we do, but they have what we call a radula. A radula is a bit like a strange tongue, but it's grooved. It's got hundreds and hundreds of little grooves on it that they use to scrape at the plant material. You can see he's having a good chomp on his banana there. So here's his friend. Got salad on his head, poor thing. There we go, he's just disappearing into his shell a bit now I've picked him up, but hopefully he'll come back out in a moment. Now snails are a type of gastropod. Gastropods are molluscs. A mollusk is a soft-bodied animal. Lots of different kinds of mollusk. A lot of them live in the sea. They're an invertebrate, of course, they've got no bones and they have soft bodies. But a gastropod specifically usually has a foot we call the big muscle at the bottom of the snail his foot, and they also have a pair of tentacles, at least one pair if not two pairs of tentacles. Don't think he wants to come out, does he? He didn't want to be picked up. Now we of course have gastropods living in our gardens, and many people hate having them there. We have lots of snails and slugs. Now I've been outside and found some snails in my garden and some slugs too. So I'm just going to show you those. In comparison, here we have teeny tiny garden snail. Now, I'm not sure what species of snail that is, but we do have around 120 species of snail in the UK. Isn't he tiny in comparison to Thor? Teeny tiny. And we've also got some slugs. I'm going to show you them on here. So one of them doesn't want to come out. One of them's trying to hide away. Of course, a slug doesn't have a shell that it can curl up and hide in. We've got a black slug here, doesn't want to play today, and a yellow slug. They're both quite small at the moment. I would expect they would grow quite a lot bigger. You've all seen huge slugs in the gardens, especially when it's raining. They like to come out. They can move much more easily when there's a lot of moisture around. So although their bodies do produce slime, which they use to propel their foot forwards, they can move much more easily when the weather's wet. They also use that slime to help them climb, so it's sticky. He's really enjoying his banana. So slugs and snails are very, very similar animals. Of course, the slug doesn't have a shell, so it can't just hide in its shell like a snail can, but it can get into much smaller spaces, squeeze in between stones, and you'll often find them if you lift an old brick or stone in the garden. A slug can squeeze into tiny spaces much more easily to hide. Many people don't like them at all, of course. They eat the plants in your garden, and people wonder what is really the point of slugs and snails. But of course there is a point to every animal, and slugs and snails in particular they are food providers. They provide food for lots of other animals. So lots of mammals that might visit your garden will be really grateful for those slugs and snails being there. If you're lucky enough to have hedgehogs in your garden, they will gobble up those snails. Shrews and other rodents as well will like to eat them. Lots of birds will eat slugs and snails. Thrushes in particular. If you've got a lot of slugs and snails in your garden, you might find you've got lots of thrushes. So if slugs and snails didn't exist in such huge numbers, it would really affect the other animals living in your garden too. There we go. So if you have any name suggestions for Thor's friends, please let us know. They are really in need of a name. And I think we will leave it there today. If you want to come back at 2 o'clock tomorrow, Claire from Lion Learners East Anglia will be showing you some of her creatures. See you later.